Here's a riddle for you.
Ooh, a riddle.
Yeah. What does Elon Musk, Michael Jordan, the Rolling Stones, and Eric Bergman all have in common?
Where are you going with this?
They are all long-term thinkers.
I love long-term thinking.
Yeah, me too. And I'm so excited to talk about long-term thinking with you today. Because every time you and I go on a walk or discuss anything, all we think about are strategies for how can we make our future better.
Yes, that's definitely one of our
That's like all we do.
Yeah, and I think that we've come up with so many different strategies that many people have never thought about, that this is how you can make your future better.
Totally. And for you listening, today we're going to teach you what long-term thinking is and how you can apply it in your life.
What are some small practical ways that you can start doing long-term thinking today that will make your life better already tomorrow?
How you can solve problems like, what should I eat today? Or, I don't want to go to the gym. Or, I have no idea how to invest my money.
All of these are problems that you can solve with long-term thinking. But before I tell you how to do that, make sure that you press like and subscribe to this podcast, because it only takes you a few seconds, but it is a long-term strategy to make your life better. So we will look at the three most important areas to apply long-term thinking, because that's where the most recurring everyday problems are. So the first is going to be about health. That's where we have tons of recurring problems. Second one is about relationships, and the third one is about money.
We're going to say this so many times that you start having nightmares about it. And today I'm here with, as always, my good friend Eric Bergman. Eric is the founder of Great.com, a company that will give away 100% of its profits to protect the environment. Eric made over $50 million before he turned 30 when he founded his first business, Katina Media, that went from 0 to 300 employees in just 5 years. And on the side of Great, he's teaching personal development and entrepreneurship to his over 1 million followers on social media. Welcome to today's episode, Eric.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. And I'm here, as always, with Emil Ekwart, who I've known for 15 years now, I think. Yeah. And who is among the smartest people that I've ever met. And he's obsessed with personal development and how to make your life better. And he's my creative sparring partner with this podcast and with all other kinds of content. And I just love coming up with these ideas together with him. And he was the first one joining me in Great a few years ago. And today he also runs a personal development and coaching business on the side of Great, where he teaches similar things as we talk about here on this podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Emil.
Thank you so much. And if you are new here, the purpose of this podcast, our goal with it, is to be the podcast in the world that gives you the most value per minute in the area of personal development and entrepreneurship. And we are going to accomplish this by spending a lot of time researching and preparing these episodes. So we make sure that we give you the best ideas we can come up with and don't waste any time telling pointless stories. And most important of all, we are not going to have any advertisement. We think advertisement is a bit annoying when we hear it in other podcasts. And we want to skip that so we can give you the most value per minute.
Yeah, and in this episode, we have put in, I think, 130, 140 hours planning this to make sure that it's a lot of value.
Today's episode is divided into 4 different topics. In the first topic, we're going to explore what is long-term thinking and why should you care? We believe that long-term thinking is one of the most important mindsets that you can have to improve your life, and that if you understand this, your life can become exponentially better.
And in our second topic, we will look at long-term thinking within health. What do you need to do today to make sure that you're fit enough to play tennis when you are 100? How do you sleep? How do you exercise? And how do you eat? And make sure that all of those things are easy to do and make your life better.
In the third topic, we're going to look at long-term thinking within relationships. What do you need to do to build communication skills and a social circle that gets stronger over time? And just a heads up, Eric is taking this strategy to the extreme.
And in the fourth topic, we will talk about long-term thinking when it comes to money. How do you deal with the question of what should I do with the money I have? Or how do you deal with I don't have enough money? Both of these questions can be answered with long-term thinking, and we will show you how to do it.
And the most important, crucial long-term strategy of all is to press subscribe on this podcast. Because if you do, you will get all the future episodes that will be packed with value for you. So press subscribe and like and enjoy this episode. One of the better memories from my life was a spring day when I was 17. I was on my way to school, and as I went down an escalator, I could see on the other escalator going up a girl from my class. And next to her was another girl that was just radiating. Something made her stand out so much to me that I decided to run down the escalator, quickly ran back up the other escalator, and then go up to them and said, "Hey," to the girl in my class, and started talking. And the girl she was with would end up being the biggest love of my life.
That's beautiful. I can picture you running up there and the kind of awkward moment of saying hi to your friend. It's like, yeah, I'm coming here for no reason at all.
And I was a pretty shy kid, so I was surprised I did that. But it was just something that called on me. Anyway, just a couple of months after that, I found the second love of my life, which was online poker. I started playing poker on the internet, and I just became completely obsessed with that game.
In a good way.
Yeah, similarly to that I just felt I had to run up the escalator to this girl.
Yeah.
I felt like this is what I should do with my life. So from that moment on, I wanted to spend every minute in front of the computer and get as good as possible.
Even though you just got a new girlfriend.
I had 2 loves now.
I can see this being complicated.
Yeah, and it was complicated for the relationship because I was so obsessed with the game that I didn't spend so much time with the relationship, and I didn't spend so much time at all with any kind of social life. I spent all time in front of the computer. So she was kind of the one who actually made sure that I had any kind of social life and that I kept somewhat sane during the following 6 years, where I would just play 12 hours per day, every day.
So you were with her for 6 years?
Yeah, exactly.
You were living together?
We were living together, and yeah, she kept me sane.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and but as you can also imagine, I wasn't the best boyfriend. Like almost all of my focus was towards poker. So after some time, we just understandably grew apart, and when she left me, I became really depressed, and my world became dark, and I started to feel really lonely. I don't think I understood it back then, but I think I had a deep sense of loneliness that I was just... Well, I was a professional poker player, right? So I was good at suppressing my emotions. So I suppressed a lot of hard feelings at that time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, when we broke up, I just told myself that I'm fine, and my way of dealing with it was just to play more poker. So for a 3 months period, I didn't leave my house. I didn't talk to anyone. I just played 15 hours per day, every day. And then I entered a downswing in the poker as well, and poker started to going bad. And then it just felt like my whole life was shit. And yeah, I felt real lonely. And after 3 months, I couldn't avoid these emotions anymore. And I knew I had to do something.
So what did you do?
I called some friends and said, "Hey, do you guys want to go out and do something?" And we went out to bars, and I really wanted to meet someone. And I was craving some social interaction from women. But understandably, again, because I had lost so much of my social skills from just being in front of the computer for so many years, that I was too nervous to even begin talking with someone unless I was drinking. And
drinking a lot, I assume.
yeah, I was drinking so much back then. And yeah, even if I did have the courage to talk with someone, I didn't have enough social skills to make anyone really like me. So yeah, then I realized I have a big problem here.
So what did you do?
Well, I went to life's biggest mentor, Google.
It's a good mentor.
Right? And I Googled, how can I meet women? And innocently entered the world of pickup.
Which means?
But looking back, I can see that it's mostly guys who have struggles meeting women, who comes up with manipulative tactics to make someone like you.
Yeah.
But to me back then, it seemed like a good solution because I was quite desperate. And so, if I only say these things in this order, people will like me.
Yeah. And did it work?
Yes and no. Like, I was going out a lot. I started going out 3 days per week, and I was always drinking. And from time to time, I would convince or manipulate someone into sleeping with me. But it didn't help me with my loneliness, because I was never creating any genuine connection with anyone I met. And few encounters lasted longer than 1 or maybe 2 nights.
Yeah, so you managed to kind of get some kind of validation, but it didn't really mean something or lead into something.
No, and it definitely didn't help me with the feeling of loneliness.
Yeah,
I didn't even know I was lonely, but I just felt depressed.
You had a feeling, but you didn't really know
something
what it
is
was.
missing, and I have no idea what to do. I just thought this is a solution. If I can just, fix this, make someone like me, it will go away.
So why are you telling this story?
Well, before I answer, let me ask you this. What do you think are some of the more common problems that people have in their lives?
Common. So if I just look at my own life over the past 10 years, I think the most common problems, like the small problems I have often, are things like, what should I eat today? Or I don't know what to cook, or bigger things, but still fairly small, like I'm having a fight with my girlfriend about whatever, or we're disagreeing. And my guess is that it's pretty common problems for everyone.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have very similar problems, but they're dealing with them in different ways.
Okay.
So if I look at the story I just told about my ex, the first way I dealt with my problems was to just avoid it, right? For 3 months, I just didn't even want to look at the problem that I felt lonely, so I just pushed it away. Then I went into a second stage, which is that I started to deal with the problem. But the way I dealt with it was just a quick fix. I could meet someone for a night and feel a little bit better then, but then my loneliness just came back. So I didn't actually have a solution that would work for me over time. So I realized I had to start doing something different. I had to start finding a long-term solution that would actually start solving my loneliness and, more importantly, my communication skills and my social skills, so I could connect with people.
Okay, so the long-term solution here would then be to kind of grow as a human being, to learn how to connect with people without drinking, but also learn how to kind of connect with them after that foggy night is over and build something more meaningful.
Exactly. So by drinking and by using these tactics, I could solve my loneliness for the night, but I would never my social anxiety wouldn't get better, and I wouldn't learn how to connect with anyone.
Okay, so there are three ways of dealing with problems. And the first one then is to ignore a problem, which is common. Second way would be to find a quick fix, which would be like Googling how to do this, but not necessarily putting in a lot of effort. And the third way is to find the long-term solution for a problem.
Exactly. And this is real crucial to understand if you want to understand long-term thinking, because long-term thinking is all about how you deal with problems. And like you said, Eric, there are three ways: avoiding them, quick fixing them, or doing a long-term solution. So I'm curious, what is the definition that we have come up with for what long-term thinking is?
So long-term thinking is to invest time to prevent or simplify recurring problems.
Say that again.
Long-term thinking is to invest time to prevent or simplify recurring problems. So if we look at the problem here of loneliness, that's a recurring problem. It means that it happened over and over again.
Every day.
And it kept coming back because first you ignored it, so you felt it again the next day. Then you had quick fixes, it kept coming back, you didn't solve it. Then you invested time to, in this case, become a person that could connect with other people. And then that problem stopped coming back, because I don't think you feel the same way anymore.
No. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so long-term thinking is to invest time and energy, for that matter, to prevent or simplify recurring problems, which then also includes future problems, because you're kind of solving a problem that will happen again in the future. And you could also solve problems that you might not even be aware that they're going to happen with long-term thinking, but we'll get more to that later.
Right. And what is the goal with all of this?
So the goal with long-term thinking is to free up your time and energy for better things. Basically, if we take your example again, you spent a lot of energy on feeling lonely. It probably kept you in bed. You didn't want to do anything.
Yeah, definitely.
So by not solving that, you didn't really progress in your life. It probably held you back in tons of areas that you weren't even aware of.
Yeah.
But after you invested that time and that energy, you could free up your time and space for other things. And now you have a magnificent girlfriend. You're doing this podcast. You're teaching people. You're giving value. That probably would never have happened if you kept feeling sorry for yourself and lonely. So the purpose of long-term thinking is to find solutions both to big problems like this one, but also to small problems like, what am I going to eat today? Like if you ask that question over and over and over again and you don't never come to a solution, you're probably going to spend an hour every day thinking about what to buy or buying food or thinking about this. But there are long-term solutions where you can simplify these processes for yourself so you free up that time every day and can do more meaningful things and more joyful things with them.
And that is so interesting, because the time you free up, you can reinvest that time to create long-term solutions for even more problems that you're having. And that's why your life just keeps getting better and better, and there is an exponential growth to all of this.
Yeah, exactly. Your life will become better and better because you have less and less of the boring, annoying, time-consuming problems. And it frees up more space and time to solve better problems, which frees up even more time to solve even better problems.
Yeah. Okay, so let's clear this up then. Long-term thinking is to invest time or energy to prevent or simplify recurring problems.
Yes.
What does it mean to prevent a problem?
So preventing means do something today to stop a problem from even happening in the future. So that recurring problem is not going to come back. Like your loneliness is not going to come back because of things you've done today. You've prevented that problem from happening.
Got it. And to simplify, what does that mean?
So to simplify in this case doesn't necessarily apply in the loneliness case, but it means to make a problem easier to deal with. Either more fun, like talking about exercise. If you make it more fun to go to the gym, you've simplified the challenge of going to the gym.
That makes sense.
Or it can be how much time it takes to solve something. So maybe you have a problem in your commute, getting to work, and you're choosing to live closer to work. You've simplified the problem of commuting because it's less time to get there. So basically you make these problems, they don't go away, but they become easier to deal with either by being more fun or being less time consuming, or less energy in general.
Got it. So what do we mean with recurring problems?
So recurring means that it's something that comes over and over and over again, which most problems are. And the more a problem is recurring, the more frequent it is, the more important it is to figure out a solution for it. Like working out, that's something you would benefit from doing like 3 times a week. So it's a recurring problem 3 times a week. So that's an important problem to kind of have a structure for. But dealing with, let's say, moving from one apartment to another, it's going to be a recurring problem, but it's probably only going to happen a few times in your lifetime. So it's less important to have a system for it. So the more recurring something is, the more important it is to have a long-term thinking strategy for it.
That makes sense. So let's clear it up even more by asking, what is not long-term thinking? Getting married, is that long-term thinking?
So getting married is long-term commitment. It is long-term thinking in a little way because you're kind of solving the problem, who should I date for the rest of your life, hopefully. But it's more of a commitment because you rarely have a big strategy or thought out, how will this look like 10 years from now? So it's a little bit long-term thinking, but more long-term commitment, I would say.
And the same thing is true for having kids then. It could be long-term thinking, but not in itself.
That's even more long-term commitment because it's going to create shitloads of problems for you. It might solve a few problems like loneliness or lack of meaning. So it's long-term thinking in some ways. It will solve a few problems, but it will create a lot more problems. And it's more commitment than it is long-term thinking or strategy.
So what about someone that is making a sacrifice today to make their future better? Is that long-term thinking?
So you mean someone who works really hard right now to kind of reach a goal or something?
Could be, or live very cheap for a while to afford something later.
So it could be a part of a long-term thinking strategy. Like maybe someone lives very cheaply for a while to be able to afford to start a business and take a chance. So once again, it could be, but in general, when we talk about long-term thinking, we want it to be a sustainable thing, something you can do over a long period of time. So for a strategy to be long-term thinking, it needs to feel sustainable. You need to find fun ways or easy ways to do things that you can do them over and over and over again. So it's more of it could be a part of a long-term thinking strategy to be able to find these things, but it's not long-term thinking as a whole.
Got it. And what about a goal? Like I will run this marathon or I will make $1 million before I'm this old.
If the goal is coming together with a strategy, like a lot of people tell me I'm going to make this much money before I'm 30, but they don't really have a strategy and they don't take action. A goal like that is not long-term thinking at all. It's a dream. It's air. It's nothing. And it's very common. If you're going to run a marathon and you actually practice and you enjoy this process, then it could be a part of a long-term strategy. It's not long-term thinking in all its perspective because it has an end date. A long-term thinking strategy, the way we see it, doesn't necessarily have an end date. You can do that for life. But it could be a part of it. You could say, I want to become a marathon runner, and you find friends who runs marathons, you enjoy the running, you enjoy the practice, and then that's part of a long-term strategy. So getting married, getting kids, all of these things are long-term thinking to some extent, but it's more an element of long-term thinking than I would say that it's long-term thinking as a whole.
That makes sense. So again, long-term thinking is to invest time or energy to prevent or simplify recurring problems. And yes, we're going to say this so many times that you start having nightmares about it. But what are we going to do in the rest of the episode?
So we will look at the 3 most important areas to apply long-term thinking because that's where the most recurring everyday problems are. So the first is going to be about health. That's where we have tons of recurring problems. Second one is about relationships, and the third one is about money. So let's start by diving into our second topic of today, long-term thinking within health.
Here's something interesting about health. The average person lives until they're about 75, and the last years leading up to them dying is often filled with disease and pain and lack. But that said, some people die of disease and aging when they are 50, while other people die when they are 100. So I recently interviewed a professor in anti-aging research at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. His name is Nir Barsilai. And I asked him, Nir, if I want to play tennis against my grandchildren when I'm 100 years old, what should I do? And he responded, there are 3 things that science shows us is very important if you want to slow down your aging. You want to eat well, you want to exercise, and you want to sleep well.
I love that. How do I play tennis against my lots of grandchildren when I'm 100? Because I love that some people actually play tennis when they're 100, and there's gotta be things to do. Okay, so how do I eat well? How do I sleep well? And how do I exercise well? These are all recurring problems that will happen every day. You're going to ask yourself these questions every day. So long-term thinking is to invest time in simplifying or preventing these recurring problems.
Exactly. And the opposite would be to avoid these problems. I don't care about my health or how I'm eating. And we're not looking for quick fixes either. We're looking for long-term solutions. So how about we begin with sleep?
Sounds good.
So what is your long-term strategy within sleep?
So when it comes to sleep, I think let's start in a different place. I started researching sleep, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago with the intention of sleeping less. I didn't want to waste my life sleeping. I wanted to be more productive. I wanted to sleep less. I heard about these people who slept 20 minutes and then was awake for 3 hours and slept 20 minutes and were awake for 3 hours and tried all kinds of things. So I started trying these things. And I got in contact with a sleep expert because I wanted him to teach me how to sleep less. And he made a complete fool out of me by showing me that what I was attempting to do was really stupid and pretty much the worst thing that I could do. And he showed me research upon research upon research how the less you sleep, the less productive you will be. And the more you sleep, the more focused you will be, the higher your energy will be, the less sick you will be. So he completely shifted my mindset from trying to sleep as little as possible to trying to sleep as much as possible, with the foundation of the more you sleep, the more productive you will be, which was the complete opposite of what I was thinking.
Right. I had a very similar experience when I read the book Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, because I thought that I will save time if I sleep less.
Yeah.
But then he showed me that if you sleep just 1 hour less, your chance of dying early is just going to go up very much. So I did some math and realized that I'm actually not going to save any time at all. I'm just going to steal time from my future self.
Steal time?
Yeah, you know that guy that wants to play tennis and beat his grandchildren?
Yeah.
I'm stealing from him, his health, his energy.
Yeah, so you could stay awake a little bit more now, but he is the guy, future Emil of 2088. The 100-year-old Emil is the one who need to pay that debt.
Exactly.
With Alzheimer's or probably being dead already.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not saving any time, and I'm just making myself feel worse, be less creative, more sick, all that stuff. I think
that's such an interesting way to think about sleeping less. That you're not saving any time at all. You're just stealing time from your future self.
Yeah.
It's kind of like borrowing money to buy something today. You're basically stealing from your future self because you want a TV or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're borrowing time, but you can't really give it back because no one can give back time. So then it's stealing. It's borrowing with no intention of giving it back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you changed your goal from how can I sleep less to how can I sleep as well as possible.
Yeah.
So then you have a new problem. What long-term solutions have you found?
Yeah, so for me, just that mindset shift gave me a lot of motivation to figure out how to sleep more. which is in many ways more pleasurable than how to sleep less, because how to sleep less drains your head. So just that shift was very, very important. So before anyone tries to sleep more, I would encourage people to do some basic research on how important sleep is. So that was the first time I invested. I invested time to be more motivated, which simplifies the problem of how to sleep more, because now I want to. So it becomes more enjoyable to do this. The second part for me, well, it has come in phases. So what I do now is I stop watch TV or stop working at 8 o'clock. So I don't do anything that makes me look at a screen after 8 p.m. I turn off my phone, my computer, and my TV. And now I go for walks pretty much every evening. I spend time with my son and with my fiance. I replace all electric lights to candles, and it's really cozy. And usually listen to some fictional book. I stretch a little bit, and I often take an evening walk. And all of these things have become my evening routine that suddenly makes it much easier for me to fall asleep, because I've always struggled to fall asleep. I never liked going to bed in the evening, because to me going to bed means, well, being in bed for like 45 minutes to an hour before I fall asleep. I've been grown up thinking that that's the most boring time of the day, because I'm just there frustrated that I'm not falling asleep, looking at the time, But just having this routine before has become a very soothing time of my day. And when I go to bed, I actually fall asleep. And then I usually wake up around 7 without an alarm, feeling rested.
Yeah, I love that. And I have similar strategies. So how much would you recommend for someone to sleep?
So I'm not a sleep expert myself. I think that go to bed at whatever time you want, as long as you can wake up without an alarm. I think that your body is done sleeping. If you read what experts say, they say pretty much no one works well with less than 7 hours of sleep, and they recommend like 8.
Yeah, 8 plus a nap, maybe even.
Yeah, there is research that says that we are supposed to sleep a little bit in the afternoon. If you look at these hunter-gatherers that still lives in the Amazon and stuff like that, it's pretty common that they sleep in the afternoon. So we might be supposed to do that. And I do that. I like my naps.
Very good. And if you want to do your own research, I think the book Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker contains everything you need to know.
Yeah, it's a great book. And he's been on Joe Rogan, so if you want the short version, you'll get a lot there.
So how about we move on and look at exercise?
Let's do that. So long-term thinking is to invest time to prevent or simplify recurring problems. What do you think are the most recurring problems when it comes to exercise?
Maybe that I don't like to exercise. I don't have time to exercise. I don't feel any motivation to go to the gym. I think those are common. I don't know how to exercise.
Yeah, I think a big one is I don't think it's fun to exercise. And I think if you can solve that riddle, like how do I make fun out of my exercise fun, I think the other ones will kind of come.
Yeah.
Because if you really enjoy something, you will find time for it. You will be motivated for it. You will do this. So the biggest challenge is, how do I make exercise fun? And I didn't ask myself this question for a long time. I didn't try to make exercise fun. I went to the gym because I wanted to look good for the beach season, and I hated going to the gym. So here's if we take it back to the ignore quick fix long-term solution, the ignore phase, I've also done that for a few years. It's okay, I know I'm supposed to go to the gym, I'm supposed to exercise, but I don't even do it. That's ignoring. Quick fix is, okay, let's push myself to do it, and maybe even start some program like I'm going to do this really hard for X weeks, or I'm going to lose this much weight, or whatever.
Why is that a quick fix?
So it's a quick fix because you need to push yourself and use so much force. So it's just a matter of time before you give up if you don't enjoy it. I've started going to the gym so many times, and I stopped because it takes too much effort. And a long-term solution is to be able to answer the question, how can I make exercise fun? Because if it's fun, then you will always enjoy it, more or less, or at least for a much more sustainable time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I have a similar experience recently when you started dragging me to go and practice jiu-jitsu with you.
Yeah.
Because I've been having a similar problem with exercise for many years, that I've been either not doing it or I've been forcing myself to go to the gym. And it's okay, but I have to drag myself there. It's okay when I'm there, but I have to drag myself. And I've been thinking for easily 10 years that I should learn some kind of martial arts. Like someone could attack me at any moment, right? It could happen. So that is kind of a recurring problem. And I wouldn't have any way of defending myself against that.
No.
But I've been avoiding that problem as well for a long time.
Yeah.
And the reason I haven't done it is because I just assumed that I would never enjoy martial arts. So when you asked me to try, I was like, oh, I said I should do this for so long, and now when Eric is dragging me, okay, I will go with him. And now when I'm there, I discovered it's so much fun. It's it's so similar to being a kid and like wrestling with your little brother.
Yeah.
It's so enjoyable. And the biggest surprise to me is that I really didn't think I would enjoy it beforehand.
And I think that's such an important part of this, that we never know what we will enjoy until we try it. It's like food.
Yeah.
You don't know if you're gonna enjoy eating scorpion unless you try eating scorpion. And I think touching upon on a few key things here when it's fun. Like before exercise, if it's not fun, it's like I have to kind of thing. When you find something which is fun, like we feel about jiu-jitsu right now, it's like I can't wait to. It's a big difference. Before it's like you have to push yourself to the gym. Now it feels like the gym is pulling me towards the gym. It's a huge difference where it takes almost no willpower on my own. It's more like, so I do jiu-jitsu Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And before Monday, Wednesday, and Friday was still my workout day. And I used to think of those as the most painful days of the week because I needed to go to the gym. And I was like, I'm really looking forward to those days. And I see this in other people around me, like my father-in-law. He's in his 60s. And a couple of years ago, he started playing ping pong with a friend of his. And he had never played ping pong before. And now he just loves playing ping pong. I think he plays for like 6 hours a week. He plays ping pong.
Wow.
And sure, ping pong is not the like most ripped body kind of sport. But if you do it 6 hours, you get in shape. And he's been battling with his weights before. And it's a similar thing I've seen in another friend I know she's been overweight for her entire life. And then she went to a dance class with me, I don't know, 2 years ago. And after that, I think she went dancing almost every day for like a year, simply because she loved it. And she got in the best shape of her life just from dancing. And I don't think either of them have really considered trying this sport or that sport or doing these things. But once you go there, you might love it. And if you love it, exercise becomes easy instead of being hard.
There are two things that are so interesting with this. The first one is that finding something that is fun is a contact sport. It's similar to jiu-jitsu. Like you have to get in there and roll around a bit before you can discover if you're actually going to enjoy it. You can't sit at home and think about it. And two, when the difference I can imagine for you by being dragged to the gym 3 times per week or being pulled there, that frees up so much willpower that you can invest in solving other problems in your life.
Yeah, it takes no energy. Before it's like, and now it's like,
So what kind of long-term strategy can someone use then to find something that is fun?
So I love what our friend Karim did. He decided to find something he enjoyed. So he tried 12 different sports, different activities over a period of 2 months or something. Everything from just going to the gym to martial arts to swimming to running. And he fell in love with something I didn't even know exist, which is spinning classes in front of a cinema screen.
Wow.
So in his gym, they have like some kind of cinema spinning class where you go spinning on a bike in a terrain video. And you're a group of people and there is a trainer that peps you on and like screams at you. And he loves that. And he really took this approach. Let's try as many sports as possible until I find something that I enjoy. And I think that's a great approach. Like, decide I'm going to try 12 different activities and decide to do that over a period of 3 months. There's one new thing every week for 3 months. And pick the ones you enjoy the most. Maybe you'll find something that feels like you're really pulling you to the gym, something you love. Or at least you're going to find something that is more fun than 11 other things.
Yeah.
So it's more probable that you will simplify it.
Yeah.
You will not prevent it, but simplify it.
All of this goes so well into the definition.
Yeah.
That he spends time investing time to simplify this recurring problem.
Yeah, and it's gonna work for a long time. And if he stops enjoying these spinning classes, he could try 12 other things, or pick the thing that came in number 11. And yeah, it's worth so much having the feeling of I'm looking forward to exercise instead of feeling I have to exercise.
Huge difference, especially for a problem that reoccurs 3 times per week for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and then you can play tennis when you get grandchildren.
Exactly. But there's one more thing you need to solve. What should you eat today?
Okay, so if we want to play tennis when we are 100 years old.
And beat our grandchildren.
That's obvious.
Yeah.
We need to answer the question, how do I eat well? What do you think are the most recurring problems when it comes to eating healthy?
For me, it has been a combination of I don't know what I'm going to eat or what is healthy. And the biggest one is I don't have time or energy to cook that healthy thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I have exactly the same challenges, I would say. So what is the quick fix? What's been the options here?
During my poker years, the most common and quickest fix, I would say, would be McDonald's or pizza. Then later, I transitioned into still quick fixes, but less quick fixes, which would be to take time every day and try to figure out something to cook and look up a recipe and try to cook that thing and go shop for ingredients. But yeah, it didn't solve the problem of time. So yeah.
No, the recurring problem then becomes it takes like an hour or even more every day to just think about food and prepare food and do these things.
Yeah, and I had more fun things to do, obviously.
Yeah, it's one thing if you really enjoy those things.
Yeah.
But I don't enjoy it, you don't enjoy it, so we need another solution.
I do sometimes, but not every day per week, every meal.
Yeah. So long-term thinking is to invest time to prevent or simplify recurring problems. In this case, the recurring problem is I don't have time, I don't have energy to cook, and I still want to eat healthy. How did you invest time in figuring this out?
The biggest difference for me has been to know what to do when I don't know what to do.
Okay.
So
know what to do when you don't know what to do.
Exactly. So all of these days where I don't know what to eat, I don't have energy. I have a standard set of meals that I eat almost every day. Every time where I don't come up with a better solution.
Okay, so if you don't feel like cooking, that's your kind of fallback solution.
Exactly. And for me, it's almost always some kind of vegetables and some kind of meat or fish, some kind of protein source. And I almost always have that in my freezer at home. So I boil the vegetables, I fry the meat or fish, and that is what I eat every day when I don't have the energy to cook.
And that's like 10 minutes to prepare?
Yeah, less.
Okay, so before you didn't have anything in the fridge, in the freezer, so you ask yourself, okay, what am I going to eat? It's like, and you're kind of at square one.
Yeah.
So it's easy to go to McDonald's or go buying something, and that's still more effort than it is to cook the healthy meal. Because
Exactly.
it takes you more than 10 minutes to go to McDonald's or whatever.
Yeah.
So the key here is to have an easier solution than McDonald's in your fridge, and a healthier and something that tastes better. So that's kind of what you need. You need to beat McDonald's at these 3 things, and then you will eat something healthy instead of going there.
Yeah, exactly. And this is not the best tasting meal that I could come up with, but it tastes good enough to solve the problem of eating
McDonald's
something healthy.
Isn't the best meal either.
I thought so when I was a teenager. Like, chicken nuggets was the best, but now my taste buds have changed.
Yeah.
So what is your long-term solution for this?
So for me, it's the same kind of challenge. Like, I don't particularly enjoy cooking, and I want something quick and easy to fix. And for me, that is smoothies. I eat one huge smoothie every day, and I've eaten the same smoothie probably 300 days per year over the last 3-4 years, if not more. And it's a smoothie based on blueberries and raspberries, banana, avocado, spinach, broccoli, ginger, turmeric, olive oil, and water. So there's like 10, 11 ingredients in it. But I have prepared these, so I've finished bags in the freezer with all the ingredients, and I just mix it with water. And it's also not the like tastiest thing ever, but it tastes good. And I've replaced pretty much all of my lunches with this, and I eat it with some cashew nuts and some dark chocolate. And yeah, it saves me so much time and headache to think about what am I going to have for lunch. And I fix it in less than 5 minutes. And I know that all of these things, it's basically a salad with some berries, but I threw it in a blender instead. And I can have it freezed and cooked, or cooked might not be the best word. I can have it prepared to eat in less than 5 minutes. And for me, yeah, it saves so much headache of thinking about what to eat. And I don't always eat this. Maybe sometimes I go out for lunch with someone, like you and I go to lunch on Wednesdays and we eat something fancier. But it's my fallback solution. And it's easier than going to McDonald's. It tastes better than going to McDonald's. It's definitely healthier than McDonald's. And you kind of need to beat McDonald's to have a long-term sustainable, healthy plan for eating.
Do you think McDonald's would pay us if we say McDonald's more times in this episode?
Let's see, McDonald's. I don't. Not when we say you need to beat McDonald's.
I don't know.
But to me, that McDonald's used to be the quick fix solution as well.
Right, and here you're saving up willpower.
Yeah, exactly. You save creative power because you don't need to spend your time thinking about what to cook. You can spend about how to do the best podcast episode instead.
Yeah, and you could cook something better sometimes, but only if you feel like it.
Exactly.
So, someone that doesn't have this quick fix, this long-term solution, what can they do to find their fallback solution?
So I would start by trying smoothies, see if they like it. I would try veggies and meat because it's like a simple thing. If you don't like either of those two and it's not feels like this is for me, I would just Google healthy meals in under 10 minutes. And I would try another, let's say, 12 recipes like we did with exercise and see what do you enjoy here. And you need to find something that's quick to do, that is healthy, that you think tastes good enough, and that is inexpensive, basically. Because that way you solve a lot of these problems. And try 12 different meals, see which one you enjoy. If you don't enjoy any of those 12, try another 12. And once you have, buy things in bulk. Like Johanna bought 10 kilos of cashew nuts for me the other day because I eat lots of cashew nuts. And it gets cheaper and it's convenient to always have it at home and you save headache.
Yeah, so have a long-term strategy for how you're gonna eat, sleep, and exercise.
Yeah.
Let's summarize this topic.
So if you want to play tennis when you're 100 years old
And
beat your grand kids in tennis, you need to find good answers to the questions, how do I eat well today? How do I sleep well today? And how do I exercise well today?
Right, and to recall, sleeping well means getting 8 hours of sleep, or at least sleeping until you wake up without an alarm, and maybe a nap in the middle of the day. And the most important thing is to understand that the problem you're going to solve is how can I sleep more, not how can I sleep less.
Yeah. And a crucial way to get there is to learn a little bit about sleep, to actually understand how important this is.
Yeah.
Don't just take our word for it. Watch any scientist talk about sleep and they will say the same thing. Because that's something that fascinated me when I started looking about sleep. Here's everyone agreeing. If you look into food, some people say gluten is shit. Some people say it's the best thing ever. Some people say meat is shit. Some people say it's the best thing ever. Sleep, all the scientists agree. You need to fucking do it. Okay, so that was sleep. The second one was exercise. And here, the best exercise is the fun exercise. It's much better to play ping pong if you love it than it is to play and go and do Muay Thai and Thai box if you don't love it, because you will stop. So find the sport that is pulling you towards doing it instead of needing to push yourself to do it. And one way of doing that is to commit to trying 12 different activities over the next 3 months, like one new thing a week, and find what you enjoy doing. Because if you get to a place where I can't wait to exercise instead of feeling that I have to exercise, you basically win.
And long-term thinking within eating is to find a long-term solution for the problem. I don't have energy or time to cook, by creating a fallback solution that is healthy and quick and tastes good enough so that you will want to eat that for many years to come. And if you don't have that fallback solution, Google easy recipes in under 10 minutes and try different ones until you find one that tastes good enough for you.
Yeah, and then have those things in the freezer always.
Yeah.
Yeah, so shabam, that's health. Shabam is a great word. Let's move on to the topic of relationships. What are long-term strategies in relationships, and how can you make your social circle stronger, your family bonds stronger, and your love relationship stronger? What is it that you need to invest time in to solve that? So I read this book about 4 years ago called King, Warrior, Lover, Magician. And it was crap, so don't read it. But
good advice.
Okay, well, it wasn't crap. A lot of it was crap. But there were like 2 pages in this book that really stuck with me. And it was about male role models and how the human race has been raised with us as boys, and when we're boys, we spend our time with the women in the village, and when we become teenagers, we're supposed to separate from the women and be with the men, and it's like a clear transition to when we become men and hunters. And at this phase, we are biologically programmed, according to this author, to stop looking up to our mother and stop looking up to our father, and instead seek other adult men's kind of presence and advice. So they will become our male role models. And the author argued that since this transition doesn't happen in society today, then teenage boys don't really have a natural path to get role models. And most of them end up with 0 role models. And I totally resonated with this when I read this.
Yeah, totally.
Me and my father, I didn't look up much to him when I was a teenager. We were mainly fighting, and I looked elsewhere. And
you were probably biologically wired to view him that way.
Exactly, and I think my belief is that that's very common. And I didn't look up to any teacher or sports coach or anyone else. And what the author argues then is that we start looking up to other 13-year-old boys. So like our friends become our role models.
Coolest kid in class.
Yeah, exactly. The problem here is that other 13-year-old boys have no freaking idea of how to be men either. So we try to learn how to be men from people who don't know how to be men. When I kept thinking about this, and I felt very lost in my teenage years and early 20s and stuff like that. And I could totally see that a big part of it was that I didn't feel that I had anyone to ask about life. I didn't know how to interact with women. I didn't know how to find my passion in life or how to interact with others.
And no older kids either. So everyone is the same age group. That gotta be so unnatural in the tribe.
Yeah, exactly. I was only hanging out with people exactly my age.
I didn't know anyone that was 1 year older.
No. And I think, I truly believe that this is a core problem in our society, that we miss that educational path for especially young men. Maybe it's the same for women. I didn't experience that part. But for young men, I think there is a lot to do about this. So how would you solve a problem like this?
Yeah, it's so interesting. Back then you would get so much time to just hang out with adult people that is outside of your tiny family. And I totally resonate with what you're saying. None of my parents come from Stockholm, the city where I live today. both of them moved here from smaller cities. And then when they got me and my brother, they moved out to a suburb in Stockholm where they didn't know anyone. So there were no other adults around. And the friends they made there it was kind of random, neighbors, other parents in the sports teams where me and my brother were. So, yeah, there were no obvious role models for him or me. And it's like you said, there was maybe a couple of teachers I looked up to, but you wouldn't spend time with them the same way you would do with another adult in a tribe. So, yeah, totally.
Yeah, so the tribe is totally missing. A lot of families do what your parents did, move to a suburb somewhere where they don't really know anyone. They make friends with some neighbors by chance, but not really anything.
Nothing intentional.
No. So this question really stuck with me. Like, okay, how can I solve this for my future sons? Because I've always expected myself to have sons.
So you started thinking about how can I solve future problem for my son before you had a son?
Yeah.
Right.
4 years before I had a son, I started thinking about this.
So that is long-term thinking, right? You imagine future problems, future recurring problems, and start looking for solutions. Start spending time and energy.
Yeah, because then when Eric has a son, he hopefully doesn't need to think about, I don't need to deal with the challenge of how do I help a teenage son when he doesn't want to listen to me.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really difficult task to deal with. I don't know how my father could have reached out to me when I was a teenager and felt lost, because I probably wouldn't want to
He's
listen
not supposed to. It's healthy for your son to say, maybe Eric is a sucky role model and I should go and listen to someone else to discover that.
Yeah. Yeah, either way. So my solution to this started taking place 4 years ago. And I felt like, okay, if I can get some of my closest friends and we make a pact where I aim to be the role models of their sons and they aim to be the role models of my sons. So we basically switch sons for like vacations and stuff and hang out with them and spend time with them. Then hopefully I can help my son to get a strong role model in an adult that isn't me, and it's still someone that I trust and have a deep connection with one way or another. And to make this happen, I figured I probably need a village, because that's what they used to have in the Amazonas and stuff. So I have bought some land now outside of Stockholm, and it's big enough to build around 4 houses where probably 10 different families could live. So I've started now picking this pact together and collecting neighbors and friends and family members to live as if it was a village. We're probably not going to go out hunting for food with spears. Maybe. We have a lot of small deers around the neighborhood. We have a lake to fish in. But the original idea is basically, how can I get my children to interact with other adults and build a strong bond there that would have existed if we were living in a regular village, but that doesn't exist in the Western world society today.
Right. So create a village or a community that is intentional and shares similar values.
Yeah.
I think the upside of this is astronomical. And at the same time, isn't this a horrible idea?
Well, so it's a high risk, high reward kind of thing. So I take the people closest to me, the people I care about most in the world, and I want to put them in the same place, which means that if it doesn't work out, shit's gonna hit the fan, and I will probably lose friendships and might end up with family fights.
Yeah.
So it's a horrible downside to this. But the upside is huge, that I might have the closest friends of mine, the closest family members of mine in my nearest circle, and we can support each other and each other's families and everything around it. So it has the potential of being a horrible idea, but it also has the potential of being the best idea I've ever had. And what's crucial to understand here is that the biggest threat to this is conflicts. Like, we end up in conflicts with each other, we don't solve them, we become enemies. And I think that's the biggest threat in any relationship, regardless if you're building a village or if you're just 2 friends having a podcast together. The biggest threat to this podcast is you and I disagreeing with each other about what we're going to do, and we can't solve it.
Yeah.
So that's always going to be the biggest challenge. And in any relationship, I would say that conflict is among the most recurring problems.
Yeah.
So the key here then is long-term thinking is to invest time in preventing or simplifying recurring problems. Then how do we invest time in becoming better at dealing with conflicts? That's the question we need to solve. And there are so many ways of doing this. Like communication at its core is about understanding each other. And conflict is to a large extent about situations where we don't understand each other. That's when we end up in conflict. If I deeply understand you and you deeply understand me, we're very likely to sort out whatever differences we have. But if we don't understand each other, which happens a lot, then we end up in conflict.
This is so interesting to me because up until I was 25, I had no idea that this was even a skill set that I could improve on.
And I think that's a very common perspective. I had the same idea. It took me, I was probably 27, 28 or something when I realized, hey, there are actually strategies to apply to this. There are ways of talking to each other, ways of listening to each other, tools to use to help communicating. And once I figured that out, me and Johanna, my fiance, we managed to solve disputes that we had between us for years, conversations that we had been stuck at forever. And they actually unraveled from us learning about this. So I think if you invest time in this, and if you do it as a village, or if you just do it as friends, or just do it with yourself,
or your relationship with your
or
partner.
your relationship, family member, whatever, and you don't need everyone else to commit to it. If you're good at it, you will get a long way. And then learn these tools, learn communication, get really good at it. Then you will reach a point where conflicts is no longer a bad thing.
Yeah.
You can actually reach a point where conflict is a good thing. And conflicts are a good thing when you know how to solve them. Because what happens then is a conflict is basically two people disagreeing, two people in general not understanding the other person's perspective. And if you and I disagree on something, that means that, okay, here's an opportunity for me to learn more about Emil. Here's an opportunity for me to show him that I trust him. It's an opportunity for me to show him that I care about him. That's what happens in a fight. Because I can show you that I really care about you if I spend my day and my time trying to understand you. If I spend time showing you that I care about you, a conflict becomes something that can make us stronger. So it's not a bad thing once you get good at it.
And I think that is a similar mind shift as we talked about earlier in sleep, that before I always thought the worst part of my relationships are the conflicts.
Yeah.
With the first girlfriend I was with. We never solved any conflicts. So the conflicts were horrible.
Yeah.
And they just made our relationship worse. And I wasn't even aware of that there were skills to learn. So those conflicts could have made our relationship better. And I'm sure if I knew those skills back then, we would still have been together.
Wow, that's big words.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting what you said here. Like, the conflicts never got resolved. So what happens, what used to happen in my relationship was that we had a fight, an argument about something. We didn't come to a solution, but we moved on with our days. Then we had another argument, but this previous argument was still kind of alive. So then we have two arguments, but we're fighting about one thing, but the other thing is still alive. And when you've done that for 5 years, you have a lot of like mini fights, like coming together in every little argument because there are wounds that haven't been healed. But once you get good at communication, you end up in a place where you have solved all of these mini battles, all of the take out the dishes, or all of the like put down the lid on the toilet seat, or whatever kind of mini fight has been. And you actually only have an argument about the thing that have happened right now, instead of being triggered by a lot of things that happened before.
That makes a huge difference. So that would be long-term thinking in relationships. What would be avoiding problems in relationships?
So if we look at this from the lens of avoiding and quick fix, avoiding is basically when someone gets angry, you either just agree, even though you don't actually agree, you just bend over and do whatever they ask for you, but you secretly get angry instead. You just don't show it. Or you just leave, or similar behaviors. Yeah. And the quick fix could be to like, I think the quick fix here is pretty similar to ignoring. Like you try to solve it in the moment, but you don't actually invest much time in it.
Buying flowers or...
buying flowers or something like that. You don't necessarily apologize because you don't really know what to apologize for. So you say you're sorry, but you don't even know why. You just want to end the fight. It's basically you're trying to make the day good, but you have no idea how to make the life good. And you focus on that end. While instead, investing time and energy in learning about communication. And there isn't one quick fix tool that I could give you or the people listening to solve communication. It's a journey. It has taken me many years, and I'm still got a lot to learn.
It's like learning a language.
It is like learning a language. But people... it is like learning a language, but you need to put in that time and effort. And the more time and effort you put into it, the more you try to talk to someone in that language, the better you will be. But we have done 3 podcast episodes on this topic before, 76, 77, and 78, about social skills and communication. And those are among the best episodes that we have done. So I'd say that's a really good start.
Yeah, and also don't forget about the relationship with yourself. That's a real crucial one as well. Your inner communication determines so much of how you deal with problems in your own mind and your psyche and in your own life.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably most recurring problems you have in life relates to your inner voice one way or another.
Relationship with yourself.
Yeah. And there's a lot to learn about that communication as well and that feeling.
It's similar tools, though, as how you communicate with other people, because you want to understand yourself.
Yeah, I think that our best friend is ourselves, and I think that a lot of our voices in our head are different kind of characters of us. So getting them to talk to each other in a healthy way is super useful.
What can someone do to learn about that?
So I would say that those 3 communication episodes are very beneficial, 76, 77, and 78. And we also have an episode about confidence and one about self-esteem, which is a big part about your relationship with yourself.
84 and 85, I think.
Yes, 84, 85, I think so too. So listening to those 5 episodes is a good start of investing time and energy. And they will also recommend books and other things that are good follow-ups to invest energy and time into solving all the recurring problems of conflicts with yourself, with other people, solving the problem of I don't understand my partner or my partner doesn't understand me. And once you can get to that point of conflicts being a good thing, I mean, it's still going to be painful. It's still going to be like going to the gym. It's like you need to put in the effort. And if you do it poorly, you will get injured. You will break things. But if you go to the gym and you do it well, you will get stronger. And the same thing will happen in the relationship. Conflicts are never going to be easy. I don't think conflicts are easy, but they can be beneficial rather than harmful. And that's a key thing to understand.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
So how would you summarize this topic? The first thing I hear is to take time to learn about this. And I didn't even know that was possible until I was 25.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need to build a village. That's a bonus thing.
Yeah.
But learning communication in general and make that a key part of your life, like learn about communication and just realize that that is beneficial. And it's similar to like understanding the importance of sleep. Communication is equally important, I would say. That you will have a shitty life if you don't sleep. You'll have a shitty life if you can't communicate. So just first and foremost, understand how important that is and make a commitment to yourself to learn about it. And then start with our podcasts and we will recommend other things in that. So 76, 77, 78, 84, 85. That's 5 hours or so well invested time in communication with others and with yourself.
Definitely. So let's move on to the final topic, which is about finance. I remember it like yesterday. It was a warm August evening here in Stockholm, like perfect temperature outside, no wind. And I was in the forest on a walk with one of my best friends. But all of a sudden, he stopped. He took off his sunglasses and looked at me with worry in his eyes. And he said, "May I ask you something? I'm worried about the stock market. I don't know, now with Corona and everything, is this a good time to invest my money?"
It's a legit question.
Yeah, no doubt. Except for one thing. This was not the first time he asked me that exact question. For the last 7 years, I think once per year, he has come up to me and said, "Should I invest my money? Is this a good time?"
Did he used to invest his money those times?
No. To my knowledge, he has still never invested. Because he kept asking me, "Should I do it? Should I do it?" And I kept telling him that I don't know if what's going to happen or if the stock market is going to go up or down. But it is probably a better thing to do than having the money in your bank account. But to my knowledge, he has still not invested that money.
I can feel that frustration. So I remember back in 2018, the summer of 2018, I have about $1 million worth of Bitcoin. And the only problem was that I had paid $2 million for that $1 million worth of Bitcoin. I had bought it the winter, early 2018, or was it 19? I don't remember. 2018, 19. I had bought it for about $2 million, and now it was down to $1 million. And at that time, the price per Bitcoin was 6,000. Today, it's 50,000.
Wow.
And I still had the Bitcoin. So I hadn't lost anything because I hadn't sold anything. I kept looking at the price of Bitcoin every day, and it didn't really matter if the price went up or down. It still came back with the question, what should I do? Should I sell now when it's going up and like get back what I've lost a little bit? Or should I sell when it's going down? It's the same question. What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? And I decided to sell maybe 6 months later, and my losses ended up at $1 million, give or take. And if I would have kept them, today the price is 50,000 per Bitcoin, and they would be worth maybe $9 million.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it's a painful story, but my main point here is not that it's a painful story. It is that question of what should I do, it can come from having your money in a savings account and asking yourself, should I put it on the stock market? Or it can come from having the money in the stock market or in Bitcoin or anywhere else, but not having a clear strategy or idea what you're going to do in the future. So that same question, what should I do, is creating a lot of anxiety, regardless if the market goes up or if it goes down.
Right.
And that question, what should I do, I believe is the most common recurring problem.
That is the
of
recurring
money.
problem. And avoiding the problem would be doing what my friend did, just not doing anything for 7 years.
Yeah, that's the ignoring solution.
And like the quick fix would be to just maybe improvise and do what feels good in the moment or what is hot. And a long-term solution would be to set up a plan so you know what to do for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, one quick fix for me was to buy the Bitcoin, but I didn't have a strategy. So I ended up thinking about it every day anyways. Once again, the problem keeps coming back if you haven't. And I didn't invest a lot of time before I made that decision. It was just that was the hot thing to do, and became an expensive lesson.
So let's talk about how someone can set up a plan to be long-term thinking within finance.
Yeah, let's do that.
So back in 2018, you and I had a similar problem. We both was wondering, what is the best way to invest? So long-term thinkers that we are, we decided to let's spend a couple of months and come up with a strategy that we can use for the rest of our lives. And what happened?
Yeah, I like that commitment. So we decided to read a couple of different books, listen to podcasts, read articles, watch videos, documentaries, etc. And for you listening here, what was interesting was that pretty much all experts said similar things. That you want to be investing in the stock market, you want to do it over a long time, and you want to sell and buy as rarely as possible. So preferably never buy or sell, just keep them. And the reason for this is that you will not have any costs, and the costs take a big part of your upside. And we listen to Warren Buffett, is the most famous investor of all time. Ray Dalio is the biggest hedge fund owner, I don't know, of all, very big at least. And people like Tony Robbins, who interviewed all other experts and kind of put their knowledge into the same pile. And they all recommended various versions of index funds. And what an index fund is that you buy lots of different shares in different companies at once. Instead of needing to buy all the small shares, you buy them in one place. And you can buy global index funds, meaning that you buy the 1,000 biggest companies in the world in one place. And then you can simply buy that and hold it for as long as possible until you really need the money, more or less. And the longer you hold it, the better it will be. And this was the advice that we found pretty much everywhere, and everyone agreed upon.
Similar to the sleeping experts. The biggest experts said the same thing in this area.
Yeah.
So we could go a lot more deep into this, but we made a whole episode about it. It's episode 18 called Finance Easier Than You Think. So go and check that episode out, and we explain more in depth how you can think about index funds.
Yeah.
But for a quick summary of the episode 18, index funds, what kind of return of investment can you expect?
So on average over the last 20 years or so, it's been roughly 10% per year.
So 10% doesn't sound that good. Like, look at Bitcoins. They went up so much, right?
Yeah, I mean, it isn't as much as Bitcoin has been going up. Definitely not. But it's a much safer investment and much more long term. And 10% is actually a lot more than it sounds like because of the compound effect. The money is growing faster.
What is the compounding effect?
Okay, so compound effect is complicated, but it basically means that first year you get 10% extra. Next year you get 10% extra plus 10% on the first 10%. So it's always going to grow a little bit more. And to put it in very simple terms, if you have 10% per year, your money will double every 7 years.
Wow. Double every 7 years is cool. But doesn't that require you to already have money? It's one thing if you already have $1 million, but someone that might have $500 in their bank account, then they're going to have 1,000 after 7 years. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, if you start with 500, it's going to be 1,000. It's not that impressive. But looking at it from a different angle, let's say you are 19 years old and you're just going to go into the work market. If you start saving $100 per month in index funds, and let's say they're going to keep 10% per year to make the math easy, you will put $100 into your bank account, into index funds every month until you're 65, which is usually when you retire in Sweden. That's 46 years. During this time, you will invest about $50,000 because it will be roughly $1,000 per year for roughly 50 years. How much do you think that you will have gotten with this compound effect over 46 years?
Bring me clarity.
So it's actually, you invest 50,000, but it will go to over $1 million.
Wow.
So 10% per year will have this effect with the compound effect. And it's a bit complicated how it works.
20 times the money.
20 times the money that you've invested.
And from that tiny investment, it doesn't make a big difference in your lifestyle, I guess. You would end up being a dollar millionaire when you retire.
So it would take a long time.
That's long-term thinking.
Yeah, my point here being that, sure, if you only have 500 right now, it's only going to be 1,000 in 7 years. But if you just put in 100 a month, you could get to $1 million during your working career.
So what strategy would you suggest for someone then, if they want to start this?
So basically learn a little bit about index funds. Listen to episode 18 of our podcast and you will know enough. Set up a savings account with some online bank. There are different versions in different countries. And start putting in $100 a month in index funds, a global index fund. That's what I would do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And my strategy is the money I don't need right now, I have them in index funds.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is exactly what I'm doing now. Before 2018, I was buying shares in different specific companies. I was trying crypto, I was trying ICOs, I was investing in startups and doing all kinds of things. And every day I asked myself, what should I do? And that question kept coming back. And after doing all of this research and seeing that some of the people I respect the most when it comes to money basically says, put all your money in index funds, don't buy, don't sell more, just don't sell, just hold it. And since then, I've sold most of my other things that I have. I have almost all of my money in index funds. And now I check the account maybe once a month to see what's going on, more of curiosity. Well, before with the Bitcoin, I was checking all the time and it gave me anxiety and headache and all the things.
Don't have those emotional swings. And
Exactly.
It's interesting as well that it's not just for the beginner investor. It's also someone like you that you got a lot of money, you've done a lot of research, you're still using this very simple strategy.
Yeah, it is a very simple strategy, but I believe it's best. Maybe it's not the absolute best in the world. If you want to be a super expert in shares and you want to put in 20, 30, 40 hours a week into learning about it, maybe you'll do something better. Or if you do the same in Bitcoin, you become a super expert about it, maybe you'll do better. But if you don't want to invest more than an hour a week, then I believe this is by far the best strategy out there.
Definitely. Okay, so where should I invest my money is a luxury problem compared to the problem of I don't have any money. So someone with that problem, how can they start thinking about long-term thinking?
Yeah, so I don't have any money saved up is probably one of the most common recurring problems when it comes to money, for sure. And so if we go back to the $100 a month example, like if you can save $100 per month, which I believe most people who have access to this podcast can, or if they can't, they at least invest something. If you do this every month, you will pretty soon find yourself in a position where you have that money. But I think the key here, looking at just how I've lived my life, when I was younger and I made maybe $1,000 per month, I spent $1,000 per month. When I started earning $1,500 per month, I spent $1,500 per month. So I spent what I earned. And I think that if I would have invested money the first day when I got my salary or the first day I received money, I would barely have noticed that during the month because I would have adapted to how much money was in my bank account. I would just have bought some meaningless crap less. So the first and foremost here is to start saving in index funds and do it the first day when you get your salary and put in as much money as you think is possible. Start with more than you think is doable and see what happens. And then it will build up over time. But the key is don't wait to the end of the month and say what you have left. Start in the beginning of the month when you get your salary and your paycheck and put it into a savings account or index fund straight away.
I think that's a real solid strategy. And when you're investing, what kind of risk are you exposed to?
Okay, so looking at Corona now, for example, when it hit and when stock market crashed in March 2020 to a way I haven't seen it crashed before in the 8 years that I've been in. And it went down for like 30% over the course of just a few weeks. So this can definitely happen. The market actually recovered and is even higher than it was before Corona now. So thanks to the strategy that you and I had of not selling, we didn't sell, but it was hard not to sell. We were really nervous. But the stock market recovered. And so far, the stock market has always recovered. But you need to then be patient and you need to be able to deal with the fact that it can go down 30%. It can go down 50%. So that's always a risk that is important. So one part here is like, don't put money on the stock market that you need to buy a home within the next couple of years, money that you can't afford losing. But it's much better to have the money that you can afford to lose on the stock market than it is to have it on a bank account.
Yeah, or the money that you're going to need in 10, 20 years' time.
Exactly. So your retirement plan or savings that you don't really have a plan for, put that in the stock market and putting in index funds, and don't sell it if it goes up. Don't sell it if it goes down. Sell it when you absolutely need the money.
Yeah.
And until then, let them be there working for you.
Don't wait for the right timing to enter.
No.
Just enter.
Exactly. Don't wait for the right timing. Every timing is the right timing. So this is basically the advice that the experts give. Don't try to predict the market because you can't.
No, it's too hard.
The best experts in the world can't. So you and I or your friend definitely can't. So then it's better to just do it now and have it done. And by having that plan, you take away the decision. It's not what should I do now? It's I should buy now because that's the strategy. And then if it goes up or down, it's not should I buy or should I sell? So no, I should wait because that's the strategy.
Yeah, and you don't evaluate the result, you evaluate your strategy.
Yes, and the key here, if this is a good strategy, it's a good beginner strategy, and I believe it's the best advanced strategy for me as well. But either way, if you like this strategy or not, the key is to invest time in having your strategy. You can apply this or anything else, but you want to get away from the decision making of what should I do today, because that's the key that sucks the energy away from you.
Yeah, and the goal of long-term thinking is to free up energy and time to solve better problems.
Exactly. So long-term thinking here is to invest time in creating a strategy. So you don't need to think about this question every day in the future, and then you can spend that time on something more enjoyable or meaningful for you.
That felt like a summary of this topic to me. So how about we do a summary of the entire episode?
Okay, let's summarize the entire episode. So long-term thinking is to invest time to simplify or prevent recurring problems.
And this should hunt your nightmares.
This should be the only thing you dream about for the rest of your life. And recurring problems are problems that happens often. They keep coming back. Preventing means to stop them from happening in the future completely. Or simplify can mean spend less time on them or have more fun doing them. So that's the definition.
Right. And the goal of this is to free up your time and energy in the future so you can solve even more problems and get an exponential growth so your life becomes better and better.
Yes, and investing time can either mean to learn more about a topic, like in finance. Spend time learning about this. Dedicate your time to find a strategy. Same thing in relationships. It can be about learning about communication, investing time in it. But the investing time can also be experiment. Put yourself in different activities, like in sports. Try 12 different activities, or experiment with food. Try different foods. So you want to put yourself in different situations, or you want to put yourself in front of different kinds of knowledge. This is how you invest time to find the long-term solutions.
Definitely. And keep the framework in mind. Am I avoiding my problems? Am I trying to fix just the quick fixes that solves it for the day but doesn't solve it for your life? Or are you actually building a system to find a way to either prevent the problem or simplify it for the future?
Yes.
Beautiful. I think that was an excellent summary.
Yeah, best summary we've ever done.
Yeah. So do you have any final piece of advice for our listeners?
Yes. So for you listening, we get a lot of messages from people who say that they have listened to all of our episodes and that it has changed their lives. And that just gives us so much motivation. It's so exciting to hear that. So if you want to improve your life, the next time you go on a bus or you go to work or you drive or walk somewhere, think about that some people have listened to every episode of this podcast and the back catalog has a lot of value. So you could do the same thing by improving your life day by day by just listening to these episodes. Or pick up an audiobook, pick up some other podcast, but don't waste the downtime in your life. Don't just spend it playing Angry Birds or listen to the latest Justin Bieber album. Educate yourself, and you can do it with our back catalog. We have now 86 episodes or so. And if you haven't listened to all of them and you like this episode, a long-term strategy is to start listening to them.
please do. We really look at these episodes as a guide for how to live better. So we think so many people can benefit from them. And if you want to help us out, please press subscribe, either on YouTube or in your podcast app, because that way all the algorithms will see that this is an important podcast. So more people will get it recommended and get the chance to start building a better life for themselves.
And that's it for today.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you.